futuristic solutions, that is okay. But now where we are at this point, we are trying to narrow it down to Mackenzie issue as a person, in what you have at the moment, what you will do for this country, being the holder of your space in terms of what has also instigated the things that have come out. Now, to my question, which I've just stated that so that you try to respond in the reality of the happenings right now, unlike the future of what will be done. That one we will do, and we will do together as a nation. But let's now be factual down here. You stated in your report that you had raised concerns, because this matter is, it's very weighty. So I wanted to know, in your report with the mobile operators, did you ask the lines or the SIM cards that Mackenzie is holder of, and also any other that he holds in proxy? I would want to know if you are able to query that yourself from your office. At the same time, you indicate in number 20 in your submission that the good news Times TV was licensed in 2015, 14th of September. Then in about 2020, of course, there were transactions between him and Ezekiel. But now, in between 2015 and 2020, were you not able to monitor what was being aired by this called Times TV? Because as you state earlier, you are not able to either categorize religious TV stations, either commercial or community. And that's why you ask the question, then how do they make their money? That aside. But at this point, when you license a station, where is the monitoring capacity? Are you also telling this committee that you're not in a position to monitor this particular station? It's a concern. Further to that, my third question, Chair. Are you confirming? And one thing I want to appreciate you is, because when I started debating on this issue, I said he's not supposed to be called Pastor Paul Mackenzie, but just a Paul Mackenzie. And I like it because you've not stated that. But still, about Pastor Ezekiel Odero, I don't know why you still Pastor Ezekiel, and in your letters, Annex 2 and 3 that you've submitted, you've addressed him as Ezekiel Odero. Just a polite concern. Now, to the point is, are you confirming to this committee that Ezekiel Odero has still been the owner of the 2 TV stations? Because you state that he appeared and stated that he had made partial payments to be able to own Times TV, which he had not fully owned as per the registrar of companies in terms of the CR12. But he had still continued to use the same station, putting in mind very clearly that what had been aired by Mackenzie was, all these cult issues and whatever it is. And so he still comfortably used the same station, and also had this new one, which he registered in 2021, World Evangelism TV. So you confirm that he is in ownership of these 2 by the fact that he aired his content all through. So those are the clarifications I would want you kindly bring to light. Lastly, you've indicated on the 12th of June 2023 that the Evangelism TV have submitted to your office on the steps that they're going to take, or they are taking, so that they are cleared of the allegations of violations and all that, so that their license still is in place. What is your view on this as the CEO, putting in place that every day in this country we are exhuming bodies? And this is a person who still walks in and wants to justify, whereby you've actually been able to note that he still had ownership with the so-called TV that was still airing all this negativity, but still here he's been given a platform to be able to defend and knowing his name is still appearing in all these issues. Even when we called in the CS, his name in one way or the other, we didn't get into details, but still his name still appeared. So what's your take as a CEO? Because you realize that when we call you in, we want a solution for this country. It's not just about individual stakes and all that, but we want a solution. And the chair, as I finish up, I would want because I'm happy that is here, the director, company registrations, I think he pointed out that, business and all that. If you could be able, as we are continuing, provide the secretariat with what CR12s and ownership documents did Mackenzie have? What is just in place from your office as far as this gentleman is concerned? If you would just be able to share. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Cheptumo.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I want to refer this committee to paragraph 19 of your report. Are you there?
Yeah.
Paragraph 19 of the report. I have only 3 questions, Chair. Now, as a committee, Chair, we are dealing with the situation as it is today on the Mackenzie issue in Shakahola. But I think we are also equally worried about tomorrow. The authority has stated in paragraph 19 that the monitoring of broadcast content is limited by the geographical reach and capacity of CA to log in or to log. And they say currently CA is able to log a total of 140 channels and 124 FM stations in only 4 stations in this country: Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, and Nyeri. The entire Nyanza, no. The entire Rift Valley, no. The entire Western, no. Coast, nothing. No, Mombasa is coast. This is a worrying trend, Chair. And they are also saying they are looking forward to an additional 30 towns next year, 2024. Now, why I'm asking this question is because it worries me that if this commission is unable to actually do monitoring of broadcast contents, then this country is going to face more challenges for Mackenzie's situation. Where is the problem when I see you? Is it the funding, or you are blaming the geographical layout of our country? Where is the problem? Is it the funding? That is a worrying trend, which I think we need to be concerned as a committee and as a nation. So that now it means even if you have to have another Mackenzie elsewhere in those regions, they will actually do what they want to do and you can't access them. Point number 2, Chair, is what my sister Mutinda addressed, but I want to do it differently. If you look at paragraph 23, Pastor Odero applied for his TV station and was actually granted in 2021. But then the commission says he continued to use the Mackenzie's TV. The question which I want to just change kidogo is, did he explain to you why he still insisted in using Mackenzie's TV? That is my question number 3. And the last one, Chair, I want to refer the committee to Annex number 1 of the report. Out of all the religious centers, in number 26, we have the Eros Communication Limited. Champion TV, religious, off air. And then you go to the last one, 119, Christ Tabernacle for Elect Ministries, Voice of the Bible, Broadcast Network, off air, religious. 109, the last one. So out of the 109 chair, 2 are off air. Can you tell this committee, Bwana Chiloba, why those are off air?
And number 35 too.
And number 35 also, sorry. Number 35. And 66, sorry. 35, 66, 26, 109.
29.
Yeah, can you explain to this committee why those are off air? Because you should have a reason why. Are we facing another McKinsey also in these channels which are offline? Those are my 3 questions here.
Director, you have the floor, especially on why it has taken you so long to act since March. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair and members, for those questions. Okay. Try to be. So, first of all, I want to appreciate the fact that the senators here are looking from one of the most difficult issues that we have to deal with now and into the future. And I'm happy that we all prepare to deal with the future together. I think that's very, very important from a regulatory point of view. That's good. But in terms of the specific questions, one around 2 weeks ago, the first is that our mandate, as we interpreted it, is around dealing with your licensees. And those licenses have got license terms and conditions, which, as I said, are part of the subsidiary instruments that we use to monitor compliance. And when they go outside, in terms of platform, they get to the online space. As I mentioned, we do not have a direct mandate in that particular space. It's only through interpretation. So that is the dilemma that we find ourselves in. To what extent can we pull down these? Is it our mandate to get in that particular space? However, given the developments and what we're observing, and especially when we kept on iterating the content that we had online, we had in our system, it became apparent that this was going to be a big issue, the online content, the online presence of Pastor Mackenzie's teachings. And that's why we said, let's mop out all the information that we know about that so that we're able to provide some sense of direction whenever called upon. Now, CA does not have a direct mandate when it comes to enforcement of some of these violations, especially the ones criminal in nature. We have to work with other departments of government. We have to work with Interior, the police, NIS, so that together we're able to deal with this. And often, in fact, 75% of the time, is that when an incident like this happens, it is a criminal investigation department that reaches to CA for support. It is NCIC that writes to CA for support. So we see ourselves as a facilitative entity to provide relevant information to enable the other actors of government to take necessary action. Like I mentioned earlier on, when the issues started, DCI came to us and sought for some information, which we provided, around registration process, around operation, which we provided Now, as we speak, actually, no one has come to us asking about the online content. But we decided to take that as our own initiative, just in case somebody will require that information, so that we make it available. But most importantly, we could use that to seek for intervention by the relevant actors. So we work very closely with the Interior, but as a facilitator, whenever they need information, we provide that information. It's the same case when you asked us about the mobile numbers and everything else. We don't keep that information as the authority, but we have powers to request the operators to give us that particular information. And that's why when we started, we said that we received the request on Thursday. On Friday, we reached out to the operators to give us information, which, as we were preparing, we started receiving the communication this morning. So we've not even interpreted the meaning of the information we've gotten from the operators. And here we only have responses from Safaricom as well as Telcom. Now, they're going to give us the numbers. So if we present this information to you, you'll just know that, okay, he had the following numbers. But what type of transactions happen on that number? If we talk about accomplices, it means you have to work with, for example, DCI, given the information they've already received. Did he have accomplices? Who are they? Are there transactions that, connects the two of them? So it does not become a CA issue, but really a multi-agency issue. And that's why in our submission we said, give us time. We reach out to the relevant department. And so far I'm happy with at least this basic information. So it becomes the foundation on following up, even including accomplices. There are sometimes we even track call logs to know who called who, how many times. But if the information is more than 90 days, is it 90 days or 60 days? That information tends to disappear, so you may not track it. So, but getting information from DCI and OP in terms of what they have so far in terms of individuals, that is going to be very, very useful.
Just on the same, so how many lines in average did you have on what you have? 10, 15, 1?
Chair, and I think I will also seek that maybe we run copies, then we give to the team. But so far, how they traced these lines is that you proceed with the ID number, because this ID is the one that is unique to you. Then you ask the question, how many lines have been registered against this number? And so far, mobile numbers registered under ID number 146239994 are 4 of them. 4 lines. This is from Safaricom. From Telcom side, we have 2 lines. So I don't have information on the Airtel lines. But the letter goes on to say, from the records, we note that Mr. Paul Mackenzie also had an inactive merchant account, but never transacted with it. Merchant account is the business numbers. So there's also no bank account attached to that merchant account. So he never activated. But they remain available to support us in the inquiry as we go along. On the Telcom side, they just gave us the numbers. So you can see, so far now we have 6 lines, which we need to prod further.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Senator Shakil.
No, it's not finished responding to my questions, nor has he finished to senators.
You've done how many?
No, 2, only
okay.
2.
Just a moment, then finish.
Thank you.
In terms of what is factual, no, that one we've said it. Yeah, the period
Sorry, I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
What is the status of the lines? Is it indicated? Are the lines still active, or what is the status of the lines?
They haven't indicated. Those are the things now we'll have to prod. Yeah. Now, between 2015 and 2020, when Mackenzie was licensed, I'm sorry to say that we don't have information in terms of the content of what actually was going on at the time. Why? Because we only began the logging exercise. Logging, we have a system we call a broadcast logger system, which basically connects you to the broadcasters so that you're able to see the content that is being aired. And as we speak now, the capacity we have is up to 140 TV stations. And then you also realize that the 140 TV stations is only just less than 50% of the number of licensees that we have. And it's a new program that we started, given the challenges. It will mean that if you really want to understand what is going on, either you have full coverage or you have capacity in terms of the officers you deploy out there and on a daily basis, or somebody sitting behind a computer watching a specific TV station 24 hours, which is not possible or not efficient. So, and we think that now technology is the one going to help us deal with that. And we just started now with phase 1. No, actually, we are now in phase 2. We ran a pilot program to establish the viability of some of that intervention. Now we are in proper phase 1, where we are doing 22 additional sites. And these 22 additional sites, by the way, when we mention those towns, it doesn't mean that it is those specific, just within that specific area. But how it is that we have regional offices in those major towns where we have these facilities. So it could stretch beyond Mombasa, get to some places in Voi. But then, because of the capacity, you'll have gaps in between. So the idea is to have additional infrastructural capacity to fill in the gaps, to have a national outlook. And we project that if we do 100% coverage, the capacity that we wish to install is going to be about 1,400, if I'm not wrong. 1,080 TV stations when we conclude that particular program. So I believe at that time we'll be covering the country in a more significant way. So we don't have information of what really transpired between 2015 to 2020, because we started logging them in 2022.
So when you license, you don't monitor?
We do monitor, actually, but as we said, it's on a sample basis, given the capacity that we have. So we'll say, for example, out of 100 TV stations, we want to run a sample compliance assessment of maybe 20% of TV stations, 20% of radio stations. Then in the next cycle, we change the candidates of that particular sample. But with the new system, we should be able now to do 100% in terms of monitoring. And by the way, Madam, to just also explain to you, and I wish to invite the team to come to see in one of our operations center to see what actually happens. The fact that we have this system monitoring, it does also not mean that somebody is sitting there to identify the violation. A lot of the value that we add is usually post facto. Like, we monitor, but we store that data so that we're able to go back and trace any violation, especially when there are complaints. And we do that a lot with the NCIC. We do that a lot with the DCI. Whenever there are any complaints, we're actually the repository of this information. But we don't have capacity to be monitoring 140 TV stations, able to, and to interpret what actually is going on. And for us to also assess that there's a violation, like in this case, I had to dedicate officers to go download and listen through to be able to see where actually there's breach. So it is humanly impossible to do all these things 100%. And that's why we go with a post facto kind of approach.
Well put. So are you currently monitoring Ezekiel's
Senator,
TV?
We need to make progress. So I don't know whether you have answered the questions from Senator Cheptumo. Have you included them?
No, he had not. He's getting there. He's finishing with my question. I just wanted the last one. Are you in any circumstance monitoring Ezekiel's
Senator,
TV?
Let me hear him. Did you answer the question from Senator William Cheptumo?
I did partially, if you're satisfied.
So you have finished?
Yeah.
You've done
about
only one.
The issue of coverage.
Yeah.
Which one is remaining?
The issue
Reasons
of the why, the explanation given by Odero why he's still using
2 television stations.
yes, when he already has his particular station, and then finally they're off air in those channels.
You can cover those quickly.
In terms of why he was using Times Media, Times TV, while he had World Evangelism TV, we actually prodded that when we called them up for a meeting. And yet they claim that they do not own the TV station. So we found them to have violated basically the principle. Although strictly speaking, if Times TV were compliant to operate, they are not stopped from airing content from other content service providers or from other content providers. Okay, just like KTN airing, a preach on Sunday morning. So that is what was the case. But when we started now a formal inquiry, they indicated to us that they had stopped, given the developments that we've had. So in terms of ownership, legally speaking, Times TV is still owned by Mackenzie, legally speaking, and World Evangelism is owned by Ezekiel Odero. And in terms of the closure,
Odero is still using Times TV up to today.
No, he's not using the Times TV.
Because you suspended
and Times TV is off air as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah. The last question there, Mr. Chair, was about why we have some off air. These things happen. We may need to get more information. Some of them we switch them off because of non-compliance. Others, they just run out of business. But we did not prepare for that. Perhaps we may need to look into each later on to find out the reason. But also, Mr. Chair, this committee should help us come up with a very specific framework that deals with religious broadcasting stations. Very specific, maybe as a 4th category, so that we're able to deal with these things, the issues of faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I wanted to pose it there, but you don't leave, so that we can give the BRS quick presentations, the other 2, and then you'll be the first person, Senator Shakila. You can ask the question to Communications Authority, and then you go to the others, and then.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I thought we give them the chance to finish presentations. Then you'll be the first one, and then you can ask your question for CA, Communication Authorities, and the other questions as well. Same to Senator David Wakoli. So can I allow the BRS to make a quick presentation?
Thank you, Chair, honorable members. I'll be very brief. The questions that were posed to the Business Registration Service are 3. We were supposed to provide information about any business entity that is registered under the name of Paul Mackenzie, the names and directors of Chakama Ranch, and thirdly, any company to which Paul Mackenzie is a director. Very quickly, I will go to Chakama Ranching Company Limited, which is in liquidation. The company was incorporated on 11th of February 1976 under the registration number C.14257, and it is in the business of farming, dealing in animals, animal produce, livestock breeding, and other kinds of agricultural activities. As per the company's record on the 18th of April 2015, which was the last time it made an annual return, the director shareholders are as follows. There's Daniel Kitsayo Baya, who is a Kenyan. There's Alfred Mukare Mwathethe, who is also a Kenyan. There's Rachel Furaha, who is also a Kenyan. We also have Amina Harith, who is a Kenyan. We have James Mulewa, and we have Dixon Ngoa. In 2016, the High Court, sitting in Nairobi, made a winding up order against the company, and the official receiver was constituted as its liquidator. By virtue of the liquidation order, all the assets of the company are vested in the official receiver. Prior to its liquidation, the company was the registered proprietor of several parcels of land, which comprised 100,000 acres or thereabouts situated in Malindi, Kilifi County. LR numbers 13472/5 and 13472/6, comprising about 50,459 acres, were purchased by the government in the year 2008 to resettle IDPs arising from the post-election issues of the year 2007. The remaining parcel of land is in the name of the company, that's Jakama Ranching Limited, which is LR number 13472/1, comprising of 49,960 acres or thereabouts, and is charged to Continental Credit Finance Company Limited, which is also in liquidation. This was through a charge dated 20th of April 1986, and the Continental Credit Finance Limited, I've already said that, is in liquidation. The company has two main creditors, namely Francis Mwanza Mulwa, who is owed 15,153,605 plus interest, stemming from a judgment decree made on the 4th of March 2009. Continental Credit Finance Limited, also in liquidation, has a charge of 60 million shillings, which was lodged in 1986 in favor of this financial institution. The land reference number 13472/1 is the security issued for that charge. As a liquidator of both companies, the official receiver is required to dispose the parcel of land in order to pay the company's creditors. We are in discussions with the shareholders of the company for them to redeem their security. The other issue is with regard to the companies that are registered under the name of Paul Mackenzie. We were able to find just one company, which has been referred to even in the previous presentation, which is Good News Media Kenya Limited, which is registered between Paul Mackenzie as a director shareholder, along with Shadrach Musao Mutiso, which was actually alluded to by the Director General of the Communications Authority. They both have 300 shares, and they are the only director shareholders. We do not have any other information on record as to any company to which Paul Mackenzie is a director. Chair, I submit.
Thank you. Let's have the national registration of persons.
Thank you very much, Chair. As I said earlier, I'm Christopher Wanjao, Secretary, National Registration Bureau, and Principal Registrar. We received a request from the Clerk of the Senate to come to this meeting and appraise the committee on two issues. One, Mr. Paul Mackenzie, place of origin and identity, and then two, any other matter relating to the mandate of the committee. I'll start briefly by stating the mandate of National Registration Bureau, which was established in 1978 to oversee implementation of Registration of Persons Act, Cap 107, 1947, laws of Kenya. And the Act provides for compulsory identification, registration, and issuance of cards, of identity cards, to all persons who are citizens of Kenya and who have attained age of 18 years and over. The National Registration Bureau is domiciled in the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services. The department, as I've said, is mandated at a Cap 107 to register citizens of Kenya after attaining age of 18 and issue them with identity cards. So Mr. Paul Ndenge Makezia, ID number 1462 3994, obtained his first registration on 7th July 1995 at Kwale Registration Office. His registration particulars at the time of registration was: 1. Name, Paul Ndenge Mackenzie. Date of birth, 1976. District of birth, district, Kwale. Division, Msabweni. Location, Vanga, Lungalunga. Sublocation, Mwalewa. Tribe, Mkamba. Sex, male. Address, P.O. Box 44, Funga, Lunga. Ukoo, Mhombe. Mlango, Kimiza. The father, Mackenzie Kusini. And then the mother details is Mungeri Mackenzie. In the year 1996, when the government introduced second generation ID cards, Mackenzie was issued with second generation ID card, where he also changed his date of birth from 1976 to 1973. So currently, in the current ID card, his date of birth share is 1973. So as a National Registration Bureau, we have positively identified Paul Ndenge Mackenzie. From the fingerprints that we have been able to retrieve the fingerprints that were taken during the initial first generation registration in 1995. And we have also been able to compare the same fingerprints with the one that has been given out from Maridi DCI's office, where the suspect's fingerprints was taken. So we have been able now to match those fingerprints and positively identify him as Paul Ndenge Mackenzie. Chairman, I submit.
Thank you. Before I give it to Senator Shakila, I just wanted to confirm from the BRS. You have stated before this committee that the Chakama Ranching Company Limited is under liquidation. I just wanted you to confirm now that you stated that by virtue of the liquidation order, all the assets of the company vested on the official receiver. Are you saying that the entire Shakahola, all its assets, the land and everything now belongs to the government? Is that what you're saying? Just let us know.
Chairman, if I would answer that. It doesn't belong to the government. It actually belongs to the creditors. So I'm supposed to liquidate and pay the creditors, and whatever is left, I'm supposed to pay the contributories. Thank you.
So you are aware that the government has, through the minister, declared that area a prohibited area. They even said they want to set up a national monument. So does it mean that they don't have, because they're interfering with private land now, or what are you saying?
Chair, it is private land, and I think we've not had a formal communication from government. I've also seen it in the press.
Okay. Senator Shakila, are you ready? Then Senator Wakole.
Thank you, Chair. I had some questions, one or two, to Communication Authority. First, I wanted to know, because they're saying they are dealing with licenses. And since they're dealing with licenses, can they tell us if they're involved in any transfer or sale of broadcasting license? And if there's a gap that exists in the licensing and regulatory framework. Chair, in that case, I don't know if they're saying that since they're basically dealing with the license, I don't know who is dealing with the monitoring, which they say somehow they deal also with monitoring, because I can see here in 26, chapter 26, they're saying that they gave the notice. They gave the notice of violation of airing inappropriate contents during the watershed period. They gave the first notice in 2020, September 29th, the second notice on 27th April 2023. And then after that, they are saying that a month or two ago, in June 2023, the same World Evangelism TV submitted to CA steps taken to prevent recurrence of violation. I mean, does it mean when you give notice, somebody comes with the steps to comply, and then you go ahead and open the TV again, or you don't take any action, or how long does it take for somebody to be disciplined or for any disciplinary action to be taken against any crimes committed in the TV? Because it seems like you give notice and then you give the authority to say go ahead and continue doing what you're doing. According to your presentation, Bwana Chiloba, from 26 up to 31. Yeah? And on the BRS, since this land is government land, which the Shakahola thing happened, when did it come to the government notice or to your notice that there's something like this happening? Or how did somebody get to the government land and do such a crime without the government establishing that there's something of this kind going on? And also the ranch owners, how did they not even realize there's something like this going on? So this thing, did it happen on to the ranch owners' land or the government land? And if it did, how could they not have established?
Thank you, Senator Shakila. Senator Wakoli.
Thank you, Chair. One is not straight to the Commission, but probably just to find out. Mheshimiwa Chiloba, your authority is one of the vital security installations in the country. I've seen budgets of national security being improved and figures added over and over again. I don't know if in this budget, you in particular or the ministry under which your authority lies, put in enough money for you to do your work diligently. Because from your reports, you're exuding hope. But in this country, hope must be translated into figures that will definitely be seen on the ground. My first question, therefore, Chair, for the authority to be able to regulate and enforce, should the doctrines of the faith-based organizations seeking a license to broadcast be availed? Does the authority have linkages with the registrar of societies? And finally, in that wave of questions, In a case where the Registrar of Societies revokes a license for a faith-based organization, does this information affect the status of the broadcast license issues by the authority? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, over to you, Director General.
Thank you very much, Chair and members, for those insightful questions. And I like the last questions as well. as well. Now, just going back to what Senator Shakila asked. One, does the authority play a role when it comes to the transfer of broadcasting licenses? We actually do. Because one of the licensing conditions requires that in the event that one, there is change of shareholding in terms of the broadcaster, then you have to notify the authority. So the licensee is supposed to notify the authority. And to some extent, actually, we go issuing what we call a no objection, especially when we consider that the original aims of establishing that particular station or granting that particular license still subsists. And most of the time we issue no objection letters. In this case, I was trying to find out whether we got any from my colleagues, but so far I've not seen any request, for example, between Times TV and World Evangelism TV on that issue of transfer of licenses. So I will say that it had not materialized or matured to that particular level until this thing came up. In terms of, the issuance of notices, I'll say that for practical reasons, we are very frustrated with the legal framework that we have when it comes to dealing with offenses or breaches of licensing conditions that are actually happening, even as we live offenses. Because the procedure is such that you are required to issue a notice and issue another notice and a third notice before you shut down a broadcasting a station that is violating. And when we look at the history of that debate, when they were giving us this mandate, the fear was that the regulator is likely going to abuse media freedom. And that's why they put in very strict rules with the emphasis on due process. We've always had that tension, and recently, if you recall, what we did is that we shut down the 2 TV stations. Of course, they went to court. The only reason they did not pursue it further, because there were other violations which the court process was not going to help them. Hence, they decided to just come to have a negotiation to help them comply fully. Otherwise, the law expected that we give notice, 45 days, and a further 15 days notice before you suspend them. For active violations, I think we need to be empowered to take necessary action. We did a similar thing when we issued an advisory the other day about live coverage of protests. Again, we were accused of suppressing media freedom. And that was not even a notice. It's just telling Kenyan responsible broadcasters, these are the rules of the game when you're there. But then we are curtailed in terms of really making sure that we are enforcing those conditions. So there's a challenge there, and we hope that perhaps it will be much better when we have the new regulatory regime. On the other question, Mr. Chair, about yes, okay, thank you. On the other question around budgets, I agree with you that what we do is really security related. So CA is a security installation. And that's why we work together with a lot of, many other security agencies in the country to be able to execute our mandate. Where we position ourselves, we see ourselves more as facilitators of those entities. In terms of budgetary allocation, I must say, Mr. Chair, that the main challenge we are faced with in terms of our project is not so much about the budget, but much more to do with approval of projects that are relevant, because we raise our own revenue. So we don't use exchequer. And in any event, we really give government surpluses as A in A. But the issue is really approval of projects that are relevant for us to execute our mandate. It takes much longer. The process is elongated. It can take like 6 months. Or sometimes that approval does not come. It will take 1.5 years. This LOGA project that we are talking about, it had stuck. The approval had stuck for over 12 months until December 2021, when we got the approval to allow us now get into implementation. So had we had that approval much earlier, perhaps some of these things could have been dealt with in good time. But we also collaborate very well with a lot more security agencies in that space. The linkage with the registration of society, registrar of society, yes. If the society or the religious organization is deregistered, we are under obligation to revoke the license. They cannot, because they're utilizing that license as an ongoing concern, an entity that is legally in place. Once they lose that legal status, they also lose the license. It's the same thing with the, if it's a business, once you lose your business status, you also lose the license. So that works. And when we do our vetting exercise, actually, we first of all ask you to present to us a business plan. You identify yourself, what you want to do, and then during the vetting exercise, we test that against what is legally mandated, and that's why we have to work with the business registration. They have to present to us the CR12. If there are any questions about even the name of that organization, we prod further to just see if they deserve to be licensed. So there's that collaboration that happens. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask the National Registration Bureau, isn't it an obvious offense, or isn't it an obvious, how should I put it, misinformation or misrepresentation of fact when someone says his date of birth, his DOB is 1973, his DOB is the other one was 76. You have his fingerprints, you release a new ID, you are seeing there's a problem, and you don't follow him up. Isn't it an offense? I just wanted a confirmation. And if it is, what action have you taken? Have you brought it to the attention of the ODPP? And why should I, for example, give different? Doesn't that say something about that person? And if they are misleading a whole institution, as important institution as the one you are heading, don't you think they should be punished for that? Thank you.
And maybe, Chair, just to support your question,
yes.
If you look at the reason given on the last paper of this presentation, the reason is some people took advantage of the mass registration exercise to alter their details. Whose story is this? Is this a story that is given by Mackenzie himself, or this what you think it was the reason? Whose point is this?
Yes. Please explain to us.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, for that question. Just to explain the issue of change of particulars for the IDs. Under Section 11 of Legislation of Persons Act allows the principal registrar to alter details, but of course with the necessary support documents. Sometimes during registration, we may register a Kenyan citizen, issue them with ID cards, and later they come up with other support documents like birth certificates, which has been authenticated to confirm maybe their details are different. That is the details for the change of the date of birth. So based on that, under the Act, it is allowed to alter the details. Of course, what happened during the transition from the first generation ID cards from during 1996, there are those Kenyans who were issued with registration documents, and probably their details were not correct during the issuance of the manual first generation ID cards, so they took advantage of that process to correct their details.
Chair, sure.
Yes.
My question, you have not answered my question, Mr. Nani. Whose explanation is this? Is it Mackenzie's or your department's?
Just before you answer that, Senator Tabitha, were you on that one also? Were you on the same one?
Yes, on him, but
yes.
A bit detailed.
Yes, just...
Yeah, just on it, Chair. The report that he has given, I think I got your name correctly. You said Christopher, correct. Mr. Christopher, on what you've submitted to this committee, one, Mr. Chair, it's actually very shallow. Extremely shallow to the extent that we needed to have copies of the two IDs, the 1976 and 1973 copy, because you see that is your submission. Two, as you clearly indicate, like any Kenyan over 18, when you're applying for an ID, the key document is a birth certificate. Where is the copies of the birth certificate that justifies this? Because this seems to be now your own information. Number three, because that's why you see when Mr. Ezra was doing his report, he had what we call Annex A, Annex 2, Annex 1. That one is normally very key. But in your letter, there's nothing like that. At the same time, did he not have an Huduma number? We are at a point whereby we have Huduma, whereby in your report, from where you sit as a holder of this key information, you'd be able to get all these informations, and you'd be able to put it as annexes and be able to give much more information detailing on this. To support what Senator is asking, when you write here to this committee, reason for change of date of birth, some people took advantage of the mass action exercise to alter details. Like seriously, who are these people? Because then it is not Mackenzie, he's not the one giving himself an ID. What action has been taken to your officers in your office when you realize that they have changed this? What action have you taken? Remember, what I want you to note is that we are dealing with different cells of Mackenzie as we speak. And we've been able to note that there are so many in this country. For us to be able to avoid this, we really need to have substantiating information that is very key. Put in mind again, as you're going to get more details into the Safaricom lines and contacts later, we would also want your office to help this committee to be able to, because like the ID number you gave for Paul, then hence Safaricom was able to give 4 numbers, right? So like with any ID from where you sit, you should be able to get details of the other people, because one of the requirements was when you get to Shakahola, he takes all your documents, he burns them, right? But through interlinking the numbers that they were calling and all that, the common ones and all that, you'll be able to know this number is for Tabitha Mutinda. So Tabitha's Mutinda, this is the ID. Then you are able to get more details of the other Kenyans that we don't know where they are today out of that relation. What I'm simply trying to communicate is that your information is extremely shallow for such a guy, for such a murderer in this country, for you just to be able to say some people. So, Mr. Chair, for seriousness, this office, interior and all that of people, if these are the people who are holding our information today, they should be able to attach annexes for that we are able to see. This is just like type, that is it, and then you've just been able to present. Look at how your two colleagues have been able to present the information, and they have it much more. They are able to try and give, and wherever they are not able, they are saying, kindly give us more time. So this committee, when it sits here, it needs details of this man, Bwana. It needs more. And what worries us as Kenyans is the cells that this man has put in place. That is what you should be able to take this information with a lot of so much seriousness and give us everything that you can be able to. Do not worry, because you are giving all that you can be able to give. And lastly, that question you need to answer, who are these people? Because then they are creating more Mackenzies in this country. That's my question, Chair.
Okay.
Chair.
Then I'll give you just now. As you answer those clarifications sought, you haven't quite come out to tell us, did he or did he not commit a crime by giving two separate dates, DOBs, days of birth? Senator.
Thank you. Chair, I want to find out from my good friend Christopher, who vetted Mackenzie to get the first ID? Who vetted Mackenzie for the second ID? And who approved both? Because they are parts of this country. To get an ID is like going to hell and coming back. But if Mackenzie can get two without anyone blinking, we need to know what is happening. How many such cases do we have in this country where people have more than two IDs and the system is not aware, or they simply behave like they have not seen? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Bwana Christopher.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
Chair, now I want to help Eric. Unaitwa nani?
Christopher.
I want to help him. He answers the question. And Chair, I want don't ask me why. I have to help him. I want Chair to refer to an annexure in the report.